July 2nd, 1943. Sicily. A German fighter streaks through the hot Mediterranean sky. The pilot doesn't see the American plane diving behind him until gunfire tears through his engine. A second later, the Focke-Wulf explodes. The man behind the trigger is First Lieutenant Charles B. Hall, 22 years old, from Brazil, Indiana. He's flying a P-40 Warhawk, and what he's just done is something German commanders said could never happen. A black pilot has shot down one of their best.
When Hall lands, the airfield erupts. Mechanics and ground crew rush toward him, shouting, laughing, crying. For months they've faced insults and doubt. Now they have proof, not just that they belong, but that they can win. That day, a small swastika was painted on Hall's aircraft, marking the first confirmed kill by a black American pilot in history. It would be the first of many. Before the war's end, these pilots would destroy more than 100 German planes and earn the nickname Schwarze Vogelmenschen, the Black Bird Men. To the Nazis, this was impossible. Their racist ideology called black people subhuman, too weak and unintelligent for complex machines or combat. But in the blue skies over Europe, those theories began to burn away like vapor trails. What the Germans didn't know was that Hall and his fellow pilots came from a place called Tuskegee, Alabama, a flight program the U.S. military once labeled an experiment. They were trained longer, pushed harder, and judged more harshly than anyone else. Every mission carried two battles, one against the enemy and one against prejudice.
Their story wasn't just about flying. It was about proving, in the most dangerous way possible, that courage and skill have no color. The first victory over Sicily wasn't only a win in the air. It was the moment a nation's own lie began to crack. And soon, the skies over Europe would never look the same again. Long before Charles Hall flew over Sicily, another battle had already begun, the fight to let black Americans fly at all. In 1925, the U.S. Army War College wrote a report that said black soldiers were inferior in mentality and lacked courage for leadership. It was official policy, printed in government papers. Those words slammed doors before they even opened. But a few people refused to accept it. Eugene Bullard left America to fly for France in World War I because his own country wouldn't let him serve. Bessie Coleman went to France too, earning her pilot's license in 1921 when no U.S. flight school would take her. They proved what the system tried to deny, that talent has no color. By the 1930s, small flying schools for black students appeared in cities like Chicago. The Coffee School of Aeronautics trained dozens of skilled pilots, showing everyone that aviation wasn't just for whites. As war clouds grew over Europe, pressure for change built up at home. Civil rights leaders like Walter White, A. Philip Randolph, and Judge William H. Hastie pushed President Roosevelt to open the skies. Black newspapers asked a question America couldn't ignore. How can we fight for democracy abroad while denying it at home? In 1939, Congress passed Public Law 18. Hidden inside was one small line, a requirement to train black pilots in at least one civilian flight school. It was a small opening, but it was enough. 2 years later, on January 16, 1941, the War Department announced the creation of the 99th Pursuit Squadron, an all-black flying unit. Officially, it was an experiment to see if black men could be trained for combat. Behind that cold phrase stood real people with real dreams. Young men from Alabama, Ohio, New York, and every corner of the country. They knew what the world thought of them,
and they came to prove it wrong.
At Tuskegee, Alabama, they began their training. Long hours, endless drills, no mercy for mistakes. It wasn't just about learning to fly. It was about earning the right to be called American pilots. They called it an experiment. The men of Tuskegee called it a mission.
In the spring of 1943, the 99th Fighter Squadron left Alabama and crossed the ocean. They landed in North Africa, a world away from home, and stepped into a war that doubted them before they even took off. Their commander, Colonel William Mommier, didn't believe black pilots could fight. He gave them simple patrols over the sea, far from real combat. It was meant to make them fail quietly, but they didn't. Their first mission came on June 2nd, over the island of Pantelleria. German planes appeared suddenly, diving through the clouds. The Tuskegee pilots held formation, protecting the bombers they escorted. No planes were lost, no one broke ranks. It wasn't a victory on paper, but it was proof. They could stand the pressure. A month later, everything changed. July 2nd, 1943. Charles Hall's victory over Sicily. The news raced through the unit. Cheers, tears, disbelief. One man's kill became a symbol for thousands who had waited their whole lives to be seen. But not everyone celebrated. Back in Washington, Colonel Mommier wrote a report claiming the 99th lacked aggressiveness and should be removed from combat. It was the excuse critics were waiting for. Then came Anzio, January 27, 1944. 15 Tuskegee pilots took off in their worn-out P-40s to protect Allied troops on the beach. The sky filled with German fighters. What followed was chaos. But when it cleared, the 99th had shot down multiple enemy planes. Some reports said 8, others said 13. It didn't matter. What mattered was this: they had done what no one believed they could. Their courage silenced the doubters. A War Department study compared their results with white squadrons and found no difference in performance. After Anzio, everything shifted. The 99th was joined by 3 more all-black squadrons: the 100th, the 301st, and the 302nd. Together, they formed the 332nd Fighter Group. The experiment was over. The legend was about to begin. By mid-1944, the pilots from Tuskegee had a new name and a new mission. They were now the 332nd Fighter Group, and their planes had bright red tails. The color made them easy to spot in the sky. Soon, bomber crews started asking for them by name. "Get us the red tails." Colonel Benjamin O. Davis Jr. gathered his men on the dusty airfield at Ramitelli, Italy. He gave them one rule: we are not here to chase glory. We are here to bring the bombers home. That idea became their code. While other groups sometimes broke formation to hunt easy kills, the Red Tails stayed tight, guarding their bombers until the job was done. Their first big test came on July 18, 1944. 66 Mustangs met hundreds of German fighters over southern Germany. The air was full of smoke, fire, and confusion. 15 bombers went down. 3 red-tail pilots were lost, but without their protection, the whole mission might have collapsed. Even critics had to admit it. These men had faced impossible odds and held the line. By early 1945, the German Air Force was collapsing, but it still had one last weapon, the Me-262 jet, the fastest plane in the world. No propeller fighter could match its speed. On March 24th, the Red Tails flew their toughest mission yet. escorting bombers to Berlin. As they neared the city, the German jets attacked. But the Red Tails had studied their enemy. Lieutenant Roscoe Brown turned into a jet's blind spot and fired 3 long bursts. The jet exploded in midair. 2 more followed, shot down by Earl Lane and Charles Brantley. 3 jets destroyed, more than most fighter groups took down during the whole war. When the Red Tails landed, cheers filled the base. They had just done what many thought was impossible. Their bright red tails had become more than a color. They were a promise that no bomber would be left alone and no prejudice could hold them down. When the war ended in 1945, the Red Tails came home as heroes, but America didn't see them that way yet. At the docks, they were still told to stand in separate lines, to use separate bathrooms, to go back to a country that hadn't changed as much as they had. For years, their story was mostly forgotten. White bomber crews never forgot. They called them the Red Tail Angels, but history books rarely mentioned their name. Many Tuskegee Airmen kept quiet, tired of being questioned or doubted. "Nobody believed me anyway," pilot Lee Archer once said. "A black fighter ace? They thought I was lying." But their record spoke louder than any prejudice. 15,000 combat missions. 112 enemy aircraft destroyed in the air. 27 bombers lost to enemy fire, about half the losses of other units. 96 distinguished flying crosses. They had turned an experiment into one of the best fighter groups in the entire U.S. Air Force. Benjamin O. Davis, Jr., who once endured silence at West Point, became America's first black general. Others went on to careers in business, education, and public service. They had carried a country's doubt on their backs and turned it into pride. Recognition came slowly. Decades later, in 2007, surviving airmen stood in the U.S. Capitol as they received the Congressional Gold Medal. Many were in their 80s. Some cried quietly as the applause filled the hall. Roscoe Brown summed it up best. "We didn't just fight the Germans. We fought ignorance, prejudice, and hatred, and we won all 3. The Tuskegee Airmen didn't just make history. They changed what America believed was possible. If stories like this move you, share them, subscribe, leave a comment, and help keep their legacy flying.